Well, I think those words, Kay, enough is enough, are words that many people in Greater Manchester are using right now. I've been going around this weekend. I was at a homeless charity yesterday. People are scared. People are genuinely scared about what's coming. And when they look around, they don't see how things are fair. They kind of see the cost of the essentials, water, gas, electric, buses, trains, have gone through the roof. They see the bosses of those companies getting massive payouts, and the workers, people who work within those organisations, haven't got enough to live on. I think people are starting to question a lot, basically, of how things have been organised in this country in recent years, and they want change. I think the public are ahead of the politicians, actually. They're ahead of it in terms of seeing the scale of the cost of living crisis, but also the change that's needed if we're to get through it fairly. And that's what tonight's rally is about. And I'll be pleased to welcome it to Manchester because, from my point of view, I start with the residents of Greater Manchester. They are looking for people to speak up for them and to call for the big change that's needed. And that's what they're hearing from the Enough is Enough campaign.
Who do you expect to attend?
Lots of people are coming, actually, all walks of life. I think it's something that is capturing the sort of moment. As I say, we need people to wake up to the scale of this. And I think that's the call that will be going out from tonight. I would say to all my colleagues in Westminster, my old colleagues, I think we need to start approaching the cost of living crisis like we did the early stages of the pandemic, where the parties came together and started to think of interventions that perhaps they wouldn't think of in normal times, where key workers were recognised and properly respected and rewarded. I heard a Conservative MP, Mr. Gullis, on the media at the weekend, demonising greedy rail workers, in his words. Well, I'm sorry, but that is just not good enough. These are the people that he was clapping, that everyone was clapping a few years ago. We need to recognise that people are going to need fair pay rises if they're going to keep Britain running through what is going to be a really challenging time.
You are, of course, happy to share the stage with the union leader, Mick Lynch. Would you be happy to share a picket line with him?
I would. And, I don't see this as, controversial. People are fighting for their incomes in a cost of living crisis. And so, of course, you've got to kind of recognise the point that they are making. They're going to work, but they don't have enough to live on. And in calling for the parties to approach this like the pandemic, I would say particularly to the government, and if it is to be Liz Truss who's the next Prime Minister, get round the table. We've had a summer of, politicking, really, making the unions responsible for everything and, kind of all kinds of unhelpful rhetoric. You need to get round the table, and there needs to be sector by sector deals here that are fair to people, but also keep the country running. And if people ask how that's to be paid for, what I would say, Kay, is we need now to open up a debate on the culture of high and excessive pay in the top half of organisations. This has gone on and on and on over the last couple of decades, where the gap between those at the bottom and those at the top has just got bigger and bigger. There was research last week that says in the FTSE 100 companies, on average, the pay of those at the top is 109 times higher than the pay of those at the bottom. I mean, that is why people are saying enough is enough.
What about energy companies and energy bosses? Should energy companies in the UK be nationalised for now, taken back into public ownership?
Well, there's certainly a case for more public control, more public ownership of essential utilities. I've listened to the leadership debate in the Tory party this summer, and they've both been promising more Thatcherism. Well, as far as I'm concerned, that is what got us into the mess that we're in right now. When we sold off the water, sold off the electricity, sold off the gas, sold off the council homes, sold off the buses, sold off the trains, we found ourselves in a position where ordinary people can't afford those basics anymore, those essentials. And therefore, change is needed in the way that we provide those essential services. Everybody needs the basics. Everybody needs to be able to afford the basics. And this just isn't talk, Kay. I've taken the decision to put buses back under public control in Greater Manchester after 36 years of deregulation. On Monday, this coming Monday, we will introduce a fare cap in Greater Manchester, a cap of £2 on a single adult fare. So we are taking steps that we can. The talk that I've heard this summer of more deregulation, more privatisation, That has left us in a position where we've had chaos on our trains, buses that people can't afford, and raw sewage on our beaches. And that is why change is needed.
Two policies there that you are completely opposite to what Keir Starmer has suggested, politicians on the picket lines, and then also the nationalisation of the energy companies. Is he the right man for the job?
I didn't hear that question. I'm sorry, you froze on me there.
No, I'm very sorry. I'll say it again. Tuesday morning, just having my first cup of tea. And you know what Northerners are like with their tea. I was making the point that you've two policies there that are directly opposite to what we've heard from Sir Keir Starmer. One of them is about politicians being on the picket lines. He doesn't think that's a good idea, senior politicians, which of course you are. And the second one is nationalising energy companies. Initially, we heard Labour thought that was a good idea. Now they seem to have backtracked. Is he the right man for the job, was the question.
Yes, he is. And I think what you can see is the support for him in the polls is making that clear. He did intervene in the summer with the policy of a price freeze, and that is a very good start. I would say there is a case to go further, as I've said this morning. In terms of, you said I'm saying different things. Well, I'm in a different job. I'm not in Westminster, Kay. I've just got a role to speak up for Greater Manchester, and that's different to any politician in Westminster. So I will come to different judgments. As I look at it right now, when I listen to people in Greater Manchester who tell me they're scared about what's coming, who tell me that already they've turned every appliance off in their home and they're cooking via their microwave and nothing else, it's my job to respond to what they're saying and actually then put forward policies that I think will support them. There is strong public support for what the Enough is Enough campaign is saying on all of the policies that they're putting forward. And it's my job, if you like, from the outside to speak up for the residents of Greater Manchester. Everyone always thinks that whenever you do anything, it's an internal political game. Well, it's not. I think we're beyond any kind of time for those kind of things. This is a massive crisis, the scale of which we've not faced before. It will require politicians to do different things, to intervene in markets to protect people. And it's really important that I use my voice to say that and hopefully give people the space to come forward and work out plans that will get the country through this.
Do you support people joining Don't Pay UK?
Well, that at this stage is definitely a step that I wouldn't support. You know, we've got to live within the rule of law, haven't we? We've got to keep a country where people respect the norms and respect the way of doing things. I understand why people are saying it, but I wouldn't in any way recommend that that's the way that people should go. What we need is action to make things affordable for people. But I do feel that kind of call will increase unless we see the scale of action that is going to be needed.
Paul Franks has emailed me this morning just before I let you go. He says, "Morning, Kay. Can you ask Andy Burnham, would he consider running for leader of the Labour Party, then ultimately Prime Minister? Regards, Paul."
I have said one day if that were ever something that would be something people would support, but not now, because we've got a leader of the Labour Party who is providing leadership in the cost of living crisis, and I'm happy to give my full support to Keir. And I've got a job to do in Greater Manchester, Kay. You know, I am making big changes to public transport, which hopefully will help people through this, and that's where my full focus is right now.
But you're not ruling it out there, are you?
Well, I've just being honest. I mean, in the future, you know, I've said I'll serve a full second term as Mayor of Greater Manchester. If at some point way beyond at this point where we are, that was something that was a possibility, I would consider it. But I'm just focused on what I'm doing right now. We're putting in place a whole range of support to help people through this crisis. That should be the sole focus of politicians right now. I think the people who are vying to be leader of the Tory party are the ones that need to be answering questions right now. You know, they've spent the summer, I think, in a comfort zone, talking to their own party, giving them the kind of answers they want to hear. But actually, those are the things that got us into this mess in the first place. And I think if it is to be Liz Truss, she will need to make some big changes and big moves very quickly if she is to come into this role and help the country through this. So it's not about the future now, is it? It's about today and who's going to give people the reassurance that they're looking for.